Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be taking a look at Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down, the second edition, and specifically the two-player mode. Now, Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down, I did put a release out on the channel already, kind of detailing my thoughts about it. Now, I did not really like the solo mode or the 3 and above player games. I had a lot of problems with that. You can go ahead and check the link in the description below to see my total thoughts. But that being said, the two-player mode here, before I sold it, I wanted to make sure that I tried it out. There's a variant in the back of the rulebook here that tells you how to play. It's pretty nice because it's only just a column of text here. But there is a two-player version of the game that is going to basically make this game one that I want to play. And that is extremely awesome because there were a lot of things I liked in the base game, primarily the asymmetry and the kind of systems as a whole, but they just didn't work in the core game. Now that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the changes of the two-player mode. So the game is still played like normal. You're going to take a asymmetric faction. You're going to be following the setup instructions on the back. However, there's one quick change when you're setting up. You are only going to put your piece, your home base tile, somewhere, and you're only going to control a single area from the start. So that's a little bit of a change. In addition, on your front of your character here, you no longer are going to be using this goal here. This goal is for the multiplayer game. Instead, you are going to be getting goal cards. And these goal cards are the only ways that you are going to score points during the game. And that is huge. So right off the bat, in the base game, you had all of these ways that you were going to score points. And the big one was controlling areas at the end. And that controlling areas was just so powerful that there was no real reason to do the other victory point control things because that was just so efficient for a single action. You were getting a victory point. And here, this is your new victory point conditions. Every player has their own unique conditions. So all of a sudden, the game's asymmetry just becomes even better. You're having these goals that are catered towards you, and they are going to have you do some creative actions. I love this about the game. So that's the first thing that's changed, and that's a huge positive, are the win conditions and the actual goals that you have. After you choose your faction, the other player will choose theirs, and then you'll start the game. The other cool thing about this is the game is only going to be 3 rounds now. In those 3 rounds, you're still going to have that hand of action cards, so you'll deal those out to the players. And these action cards are unique for 2 players. They are designed so that they activate well against each other. You have some that are going to provide you with very interesting effects, like potentially stopping certain phases from happening. But once again, you're going to be drafting these so you know potentially which of these cards are coming. I think this is really cool. And the other interesting thing about this is you're no longer just looking for the combat-specific cards, because once again, that strength of conquering areas is no longer the only way to score points efficiently. You have your special goals. So now when you are drafting, you actually are considering each of these cards on an individual basis and seeing how they're going to propel your personal victory condition forward. I love that. It has changed so much just because of these new goals for each player. Love this system. So after you pick your cards, you're going to be going in turn order up here on the initiative track, and it works very similar to the base game. So it keeps the easy game flow of the core game, but it reduces the timeline, and it actually stresses the importance of different actions. So you'll run through your lists here, and the other cool thing about this, we go into that blue phase, we're going to be drawing cards and moving up the initiative order. The cool thing about this, though, is when you draw event cards, there's a Kickstarter exclusive module that we're playing with, and this is the personalized event cards. The base game event cards are still going to be in the game, and they still have that problem where some of them are stronger than others. But here's the kicker. You can straight up ignore these now if you're playing with those Kickstarter exclusive events, because each faction is going to have their own special events that work specifically for them, and I think that is so cool. This, once again, adds to the asymmetry. It gives powerful events to each player, and since you're only drawing probably around 3 events a round, or based on the action cards you're picking, potentially more, you're going to be able to draw these more consistently and actually pick something that's going to help you and help your faction's specific abilities. I love this system. I think this just works so well, and I don't know why these were not included in the base game, because they really do solve that event card problem by providing you with events that are actually exciting and actually interesting. So I really like that, and not extremely weak. So that's another amazing change. Now, the last big thing here is when you're going through these other phases, everything else just becomes more concise and clear. Because you're only dealing with 2 enemy factions, the Oni, which are extremely easy to calculate their strength. There's only 3 of them, and they go 10, 20, 30. So it's pretty straightforward. but you're only having to reference one of these cards when you're looking at the miniatures. So the miniatures still don't have any information, so it still can be a little bit annoying, but seeing as you're only considering one different player for their different stats, this becomes a lot less overwhelming and something that you can actually easily digest and decreases the amount of time for math and calculation for your simple combat actions. So I really, really like this. And continuing on about combat, all of a sudden your combat cards become more useful. You're no longer just using that conquest action because once again, it's based on your goals here. You may have a goal that's going to have you taking out specific characters, or in the case of the Cyber Samurai here, one of their goals is prevent the enemy from entering your home tile. That means that it might become very important for you to annihilate the enemy characters, which is really awesome. So once again, you are catering what you're choosing here to your specific objectives. I love this. I'm so surprised that they did not have this objective system before. I just think it really opens up the game and makes for a very tense back and forth. Now, those are all of the things that I love about the two-player game. I think that the changes, every single change they've made here has been a hit. I love that the way the game works. I love the flow. I love honestly, this mission system just permeates everything. Every single action is affected by these new goals. I absolutely love this. One other thing that it changes is during the setup, each player is going to get their home tile, and you'll actually be kind of drafting the tiles and making the map at the beginning, which once again leads into those missions. I think this is so well done. I think it's so good, and it's a game that I'm going to be coming back to quite a bit because the two-player is so great. Now, one quick negative on this, some of the factions you are unable to use in the two-player mode. For example, the Panda faction is only available in the multiplayer, and that kind of stinks because you'll have some content from the Kickstarter edition that you're just not able to use. One thing I dislike about this two-player mode, however, is some of the expansions for the Kickstarter exclusives are not able to be used. For example, these alternative goals, as well as the specific player powers for the characters. So they're like these leader cards that you can use that'll give you some sort of special ability. Unfortunately, you cannot use them in the multiplayer game. The other negative for this is all of your reference sheets become a little obsolete. Once again, you're not going to be using any of these victory point tracks, so that kind of becomes useless. And so you just have to keep in mind that it's important to keep all of your mission goals in mind. Each player is going to have 6 of them, and you want to make sure that each player knows each other's mission goals. So make sure you read them thoroughly. That way each player knows what they're going for. So that could be a little bit of a step up here if you forget or you're not sure what the other person is trying to do. So make sure that you keep this as a priority. The other thing about this game that may be seen as a negative is the miniature storage itself. There are a lot of miniatures in this game, and some of them are very fragile, particularly these little bugs. They've got just like a little stick here that's holding them up. So you're probably still going to want to keep them in the packaging here. So storage could be an issue for these miniatures. So just keep that in mind, is you're probably going to still need 2 boxes to store everything. But since you are only playing with the 2-player content, you can definitely condense all of the 2-player stuff into 2 boxes, and that's really nice. And that's everything for the review. Once again, extremely positive here. It has moved up in my ratings from a 6 to an 8. Only for the 2-player mode. This is a game that I'm excited to pull out. I'm excited to try the factions. I'm excited to see how they pair up against each other because of these super interesting goals. I love how this really played into the thing that this game does the best in the multiplayer, the asymmetry, and I love exploring all of the different factions in the game. You can now use all of these expansion factions, everything but the Panda as well, and explore them, so I can't wait until we get to try all of the different combinations. I'm so happy that this game turned out to be one that we can actually play and have a good time with, and I'm excited to try more of Tsukuyumi Fold Me Down. But once again, I'll quickly go over those positives. First off, those faction events, make sure you are playing with them. The personal missions that permeate everything in the entire game. The fact that you're going to be using these combat cards in unique and interesting ways. The fact that these action cards, the symbols matter because of those personal missions. And once again, this tight map, making it so that the analysis of the board as a whole is very easy to read and register. So this is a great experience. I fully recommend the 2-player version of Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down. I think that it is a very awesome time and one that I cannot wait to play again. Great game. That is Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down 2-player mode. Thank you so much for watching. Side Game Strong.